Okay, so chapter 3, section 5 should be very familiar to a lot of you because this is, again, just a review of Algebra 1. So everything that we're doing today is a review of Algebra 1. However, we're going to apply it in geometry. So we're talking about lines. How do we write the equation of a line in different forms? So one of the things that you guys learned last year, you learned about slope, you learned about y-intercept, you learned about slope-intercept form, you learned about point-slope form. All of those come back. So all those we are going to be doing again today. So some things that you may or may not have forgotten. A couple things. Slope-intercept. The name alone just describes exactly what you need to be able to do it. So if you have the slope, like somebody gives you the slope, and the y-intercept, remember the intercept means the y-intercept, you can get the equation of a line. We do it in the form of y equals mx plus b, where the two things that we're looking to put in there are the slope and the y-intercept, b standing for the y-intercept. So when you plug those two things in, you get the equation of the line. We're not plugging in an x value, we're not plugging in a y value. If we just want the equation, all we need is the slope and the y-intercept. M is the letter we use to represent slope, b is the letter we use to represent the y-intercept. And if we could find the slope and we could find the y-intercept, then we could graph it. Now, the one thing that's very important here is that we go and, sorry, brain locked out there, is that we make sure that it looks like that form. Notice that y is on the left all by itself. That's one of the things that has to happen is that y has to be alone and all by itself. It can't be 20y, it can't be 7/4 y. Y needs to be all by itself for this to be in slope-intercept form. So we're going to graph these three, A, B, and C, on the next slide. So on our next slide, there's a big graph. I'm actually just going to take a screenshot here and bring it in on the next one. Okay, so I brought in those three equations, the ones from the previous slide. I'm bringing them into this graph right here, and we're going to go through and graph them. I actually think the second and the third, B and C, are the easiest to graph. So let me just color code these real quick so we know which one is which. I'm going to use red, blue, and green, just so you know which line matches up to which. I'm actually going to go in reverse order here. Y equals 3. Now, we talked about lines like this on Friday. That is a certain type of line when y is equal to something. It is a horizontal line. So let's say that you knew that it was a horizontal line, but you're not sure where to draw it. Well, if you think about the name, it says y is equal to -3. And if you notice right here, oh, that's not very big. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can correct that. Right here, y is equal to -3. I'm zooming in right there. So y is equal to -3. But that's not the only place where y is equal to -3. If I went here, y is equal to -3. Here, 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 here. All of these spots, y is equal to -3. And that's why we get this horizontal line here that looks just like that to graph it. If it were x equals -3, I would go on the x-axis to -3, and I would make all my x values. So this is C right there. That's the third one. I'm actually working in reverse order because actually I think A is the most difficult of the three. So let's talk about that blue line. Y equals -1/4 x plus 2. Let's go back to Algebra 1 for a minute. How do we graph a line like that? Y equals -1/4 x plus 2. So this one is in slope-intercept form. Yes, ma'am.
So first you go to +2 on the y one.
Good. So because the y-intercept is +2 right there, we're going to go to +2 on the y-axis. And then what?
And then you go down 1 because it's negative.
Mm-hmm.
And you go over 4.
When you say over, which direction?
Right.
Okay, good. So the slope in this case is -1/4. So you could put that negative at the top, you could put it with the bottom, it's not going to matter, but don't put a negative on top and a negative on bottom. Just put it with one of the two. And as she said, we're going to go down 1 and right 4. Down 1, 1, 2, 3, right 4. And I can keep doing that if I want more points. Down 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. It gives me the general shape of this line here. Now, what if I wanted to continue the slope in the other direction? Yes, ma'am?
To go up 1, 2, left 4.
Good. I could write it the other way, which is the same thing as this, which is up 1, left 4. Up 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Up 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. And my line would look just like that. Sorry, I'm not a Notability, so it doesn't allow me to straighten my lines there very well. All right, finally, last but not least, this is not, the red one there is not in slope-intercept form. So let's get it there. Number one, we're going to have to get that y by itself, and then we're going to have to deal with any other problems that arise. George?
You have to add this to the other side.
Okay, so I see where you're going, but check it out. If I added 2x to each side, wouldn't I end up with 4x? Okay, so we're going to subtract. Minus 2x. So I'm going to rewrite that really quick. Like, I subtracted 2x from the left, and I get negative 3y is equal to negative 2x plus 6. Now, if you were thinking, could I write 6 minus 2x? You could, but remember, I need this to look like y equals mx plus b. So why not write the x right afterward there? So I could have written 6 minus 2x, but then it gets confusing as to, well, what's the y-intercept then? All right, but we're still not in slope-intercept form. What do I need to do next? Yes, ma'am?
Divide by negative 3.
Okay, I'm going to do something wrong here, and you tell me what I did wrong. Divide by negative 3. Divide by negative 3. And again, I'm telling you I'm doing something wrong here. A negative over a negative is a positive, so I'm going to change that into 2/3 x plus 6. What did I do wrong? Yes, ma'am?
You have to divide by negative 3 to the whole other side.
Everything on the right needs to be divided by negative 3, so I didn't do it for that negative 6, that positive 6 over there. That one needs to be divided as well, which would then make this a negative 2. So let's graph that red line now. Now we're able to graph it. I am going to go to the y-intercept, which is negative 2, and then I'm going to use the slope, which is 2/3 from there. So here I go to negative 2, and the slope 2/3 means up 2, right 2, up 2, right 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Something like that. So that's what our lines are looking like. The 3 lines from the previous page. Now you're going to be asked to graph things, and when that happens, the easiest way is that if you don't have, if you can either use Notability's graph paper that you can bring in, or if you want, you can just go to Google and type blank graph, and you can just copy paste one in here over and over again, whatever works best for you. But the only reason I say blank graph is because let somebody else do the numbering for you. Why not? If you see the numbers that work, why number all yourself? Okay, so now we're going to use a graph to write an equation of the line in slope-intercept form. On this next test, what gets people here is that they forget the 2 different forms that we're going to use. Now we're starting off with slope-intercept, we'll get to point-slope in a minute. What are the 2 things that I need to know to write an equation in slope-intercept form?
You need to know the slope and
And what?
hold on. The y-intercept.
And the y-intercept. So I'm going to need those 2 things. If I could figure out what m equals and I could figure out what b equals, then we're good. So let's start with the b. How do I find the b? Yes, ma'am.
You do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus
That would give me the slope. That would give me the other one. That would give me the m. Let's start with the other one's easier. So, yes, ma'am.
It's on the y line.
Perfect. A y-intercept means where does it cross the y-axis, and you can see right there. Now, what do I write there? What number do I write for b? 4, because the y-intercept will always be, always, the y-intercept will be 0 something. I don't know what the other digit is. It's always going to be 0 something, because if it's on the y-axis, that means that it didn't go any direction to the left, it didn't go any direction to the right. Its first digit, its first coordinate is going to be 0. So it's 0 something, and that something that we're looking for is 4. Now let's go back to what you were telling me about y2 minus y1. So let's go with this. Well, how do I know which one of these is x1, y1, and which one of these is x2, y2? Doesn't matter. So let's just do this. Here's an x, here's a y, here's an x, here's a y. just because this one was here on top, I'm going to call that x1, y1, x2, y2. Now, what is my equation again for slope? Okay, so we've got y2, which is negative 2, minus y1, which is 4, over x2, which is 3, minus x1, which is 0. Negative 2 minus 4 is? And 3 minus 0. Negative 6 divided by 3. Negative 2. So we know my slope is negative 2. So remember, to write this equation now, all I need to do is the things that I am going to plug in, I'm only just going to plug in the m and the b. So y equals mx plus b. And our b here is 4. So that is the equation of this line that we're looking at there. Okay, so this says write an equation of the line passing through the point negative 1, 1 that is parallel to the line with the equation of y equals 2x minus 3. Okay, so if something is parallel to this line, why do I care about that? What is important about that?
They have the same slope.
They have the same slope. And what is the slope of this line right here? The slope of that line is 2, which means the slope of our line will be 2 as well because they are parallel. So write an equation of the line that passes through the point negative 1, 1 and is parallel to the line with the equation y equals 2x minus 3. Well, the one thing that we're missing here is the b. We don't know the b. Remember, like we are sitting here going like, I need that y-intercept. This is not the y-intercept. How do I know immediately that that is not the y-intercept based on some information I just gave you on the other slide? X is not 0. That can't be the y-intercept. There's no way. That does not have an x value of 0. Don't be sucked into that trap. It's very easy to plug that in. That is not the y-intercept. So let's just see what we do have. We have y equals mx plus b. Here's the real question. Why would they give me an x and a y value? What was the point of giving me an x and a y value? Yes, ma'am. I can plug those in. What that means is when I plug in negative 1, I get back 1. So watch what happens here. I'm going to plug in that y, which is 1, equals 2 times the x, which is negative 1, plus b. Well, what does that do for me? When I do this, what's going to happen? What am I going to have at the end? Yes, ma'am. I mean, what information will I have? I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right about your math. What information will I have when I'm done with this? George? The b, which is what I'm looking for. So we've got 1 is equal to negative 2 plus b. Add 2 to both sides, and we get b is equal to 3. So we know that our b now is 3. So now we can use this to go, oh, okay, I see what's going on here. We've got y equals 2x plus 3. Very easy to fall for that trap up there where that negative 1, 1, people want to say that's the y-intercept. It is not the y-intercept unless the x is 0. If the x is 0 and there's something else for y, then that's your y-intercept. Write an equation of the line j, which passes through the point 2, 3, that is perpendicular to the line k with the equation y equals negative 2x plus 3. So k has this equation. But we're looking for the line that is perpendicular to this one.
So it would have the opposite reciprocal?
Beautiful, for a slope. So we're looking for, this one has a slope of what? What is this, like, so k's slope is what?
2.
K has a slope of, not 2, but of negative 2. So we're looking for the slope of j now. So what do I need to do with this to find the opposite reciprocal? Flip it upside down, it becomes 1/2, and change it to a positive. So our slope, the one that we care about, is this one right here. Okay, so I know that, like, I've got y equals m x plus b. But I don't have the b, so what can I do? Plug in the x and y, just like we did last time. We've got x and y. Let's plug in the x and y, and we'll be left with b. So we've got, here's another big thing of mistakes that people make, that you see how the x up here is on the left and the y is on the right? Well, when you plug them in here, y is on the left and x is on the right. So you have to be careful with that. 2 does not go on the left. 3 goes on the left because it is the y. 1/2 of 2 plus b. B is equal to 2. So now y is equal to m x plus b. Okay, next up. Now, standard form is a form of writing things that is very common. We tend not to use it as much in geometry, but we use it a lot in Algebra 2, like a lot. So if you feel like we're learning this and you're like, oh, we didn't really use that a whole lot, we may not use this as much as we use slope-intercept or point-slope form, but you will see that standard form is a really big thing when it comes to Algebra 2. Right now, my Algebra 2 students have to write all their answers in standard form or they get them wrong. So that is a big thing that's coming up. Now, if you notice some things to notice about standard form, when we write standard form of a line, here's a couple things. X and Y are both on the left. They're both on the left. Now, this is just for standard form. If I asked you to put something in standard form, X and Y both go on the left. And C, which is just that number, the constant, like the one that doesn't have a variable with it, goes by itself on the right. A and B are not both 0. You can't have both of them be 0. Now, we're allowed to have one of them be 0. We could have like the equation of a horizontal line in standard form where just like the y is on the left or just the x is on the left. Because like, remember, if you don't have an x, if you have just a y equals something, then that is going to be a horizontal line. Or if you just have x equals something, that's going to be a vertical line. We can still put those in standard form, but they can't both be 0. We won't have a line. We would lose the line altogether. A, B, and C, when we put things in standard form, all need to be whole numbers. So if they are fractions, we might need to multiply by something to turn them into whole numbers. And also, A, that number that is in the front there, we call that the leading coefficient there, the one that's right out front, needs to be a positive number. So what if it were, like, let's say I had a situation like this, where I've got negative 2x plus 3y equals 7. Is that in standard form? X and y are on the left. A and B are not both 0. A, B, and C are all whole numbers, negative 2, 3, and 7. A is positive? No. So it's not that it can't be written in standard form. It means I need to do something to put it in standard form. What could I do? Yes, ma'am.
Multiply by -1.
Let's multiply everything by -1. If we do that, that's okay to do as long as you do it to everything. We get 2x minus 3y. Oh, my y is a little wonky there. There we go. Is equal to -7. That would be considered standard form. So the three things that we're looking for there is that, I guess it's 4 things. X and y are on the left. The constant is on the right. A and B cannot both be 0. It can't be like 7 equals 4. That wouldn't be the equation of a line. A, B, and C are all whole numbers. If they are fractions, even if one of them is a fraction, you are going to need to multiply by something to turn them all into whole numbers. And finally, A, your leading coefficient, the one attached to the x, has to be a positive number. All right, so let's do some graphing. This is written in which form? Which kind of form is this like set up as? Point slope, slope intercept? This is in standard form. Standard form is great for certain things. It's terrible for graphing. So let's make it good for graphing. What can I do? Yes, sir.
Change it to slope intercept.
How do I do that?
You can do minus 3 on each side, 3x.
Good. Just to see where he's going, he said we could turn it to slope intercept form. Fantastic. Let's subtract 3x from both sides. We get 4y is equal to negative 3x plus 12. And again, why am I writing the negative 3x first? Why didn't I write it as 12 minus 3x? Because I want it to look like y equals mx plus b, so it's better to have that x out front. Okay, but are we in slope-intercept form yet? No. Yes, ma'am. Let's divide by 4. Divide by 4, divide by 4, divide by 4. Well, this just becomes y, and we get negative 3/4 x plus 3. And this is where people usually freak out and they'll be like, wait, can that be a fraction? You go, yes, because this is not standard form. We're not in standard form. This is where we just have slope-intercept form. To be honest, sometimes slope is much easier to understand as a fraction than it is as a whole number. Like sometimes we freak out when we see a whole number. You're like, wait, which is the rise and which is the run? Okay, so let's graph this. How do I graph it? Yes, ma'am?
You're going to start at 3, like positive 3 on y, and then you're going to go down 3 and over to the right 4.
4. And if you want more dots to make it easier, just keep going down 3, 1, 2, 3, right 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, down 3, 1. I'm not going to be able to go right 4, but I can go up here. I can go left, left, up 3, 1, 2, 3, and left 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. If at any point you see that one of your points looks like it kind of did something different, like it goes off in a weird direction, then you probably just miscounted. So if it doesn't look like it's doing the same thing, or if your line suddenly takes a weird turn in there, you probably just miscounted on one of them. Go back and check it. It's very easy to just accidentally count one too many or one less than you needed. Okie doke. 2 more slides, and then I can get your quizzes back to you. All right, so it says write an equation of the line in the graph on the right, of the line of the graph on the right. Write an equation of the line in the graph. Okay, no, that's okay. They're right, I'm wrong. Somebody help me out. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you're going to try to find the slope by
Okay.
doing y2 minus y1 equals x2
Oh.
divided by x2 minus x1. And then to find the y, you're going to look at the number that's on the y-intercept, which is -1.
And that's definitely, even if the picture didn't tell you that was the y-intercept, the coordinate should have told you, because you see the 0 there for an x. Okay? You want to keep going, Amber?
Sure. And then
Talk to me about which one's x1, y1, which one's
it
x2, y.
doesn't really matter, but I'll choose the top as 1 and the bottom as 2.
Okay?
And you're going to do -1 minus 1 over 0 minus 3. And then -2 over -3. And that's just, well, and then put some 5 to 2.
Perfect. So we've got our slope. We've got our y-intercept. What do I do with it?
You're going to plug it into y equals mx plus b, so y equals 2/3 x minus 1, or plus -1, whichever.
Same thing. Yep. Plus -1, minus 1, same thing. Now, I can tell you, for some reason, the people who struggle with this, if at the end you are still plugging in x's and y's, you're doing something wrong. A line, when we talk about the equation of a line, if you're trying to find the equation of a line, I'm expecting to see, bless you, like y and x in there, unless it's just a horizontal or vertical line, in which case we would lose either the y or the x. Okay, so no picture on this one. Very interesting. Write an equation of the line that passes through -2, 5, and 1, 2. Not any harder, nothing that we haven't done already. It's just without the picture, all of a sudden, we feel like we're a little bit hung up there. Somebody want this one? Yes, ma'am?
So first you can find
Which one? Let me help us identify which one you're calling x1, y1 so that we're all on the same page of where you're going.
I did x1 and y1, the 2, -2 and 5.
Like this?
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure that like somebody's like, wait, where'd you get that number? They can see exactly where you got it. So slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. All right, go.
Okay, and then you do 2 minus 5 over 1 minus -2. And you get -3 over +3. That's -1.
Okay, so our slope is -1.
And then you can plug in your numbers to find the
Okay, let me show you what she's talking about here. We've got y equals mx plus b. How do I know which one of those to plug in?
I did pick
You can pick either. It doesn't matter. Either one of these are just as good. It says, the way that these coordinates work is when I plug in this x, I get back this y. So both of these work in this equation. So you pick whatever you want. You're going to end up, bless you, at the exact same thing. What did you pick?
I plugged in the -2 and 5.
Perfect. So she's working with these numbers right here, and I'm going to do the same ones just because that's what she did. You could use 1 and 2. If you prefer those, you would get the same thing. So she did 5 is equal to -1 times -2 plus b. 5 is equal to 2 plus b, or b is equal to 3. Okay, so we've got our b, we've got our -1. Bring it all together.
Okay, so you write y equals -1x plus 3.
There's only one little thing I would change about it, and it's little, but I still think that we should change it. What's the thing that I would change? I'd take away the 1. We don't normally say 1x, so let's just call it -x plus 3. So if you ever see just a -x and you're like, wait, what's the slope? Well, I would say to you, what's the number that's in front of the x? And you would say -1. So in which case, same exact thing.
You would be okay with both of them?
I would probably circle this and tell you, I don't know that I would take off points on this first one, but you've got to understand that your Algebra 2 teachers will be brutal with you about that if you don't correct that. So you have to understand same thing. They mean the same thing. It's like if you always wrote x to the first power right there. Like, why are you doing that? We know it's x to the first power. You know what I mean? It's like, how old am I? I'm 41 to the first power years old. You're like, why? We get it. It's to the first power. We don't need it. You know what I mean? Not necessary. Okay. Find the equation with the given info. Let's leave this up here. I'm going to let you guys work on this while I pass this out. So remember that this means perpendicular. This means parallel. And when we have an x-intercept, it means that the y-coordinate is 0. And when we have a y-intercept, it means that the x-coordinate is 0. Which is enough to help you find slope, which is enough to get the equation there. So I'm going to pause this. I'm going to pass out your quizzes. Again, we probably don't have enough time to go over it today. So what I'm going to need from you is that if you want to go over your quiz, if you have questions about your quiz, you have two options. Either come see me in the morning, I'll be glad to go over it with you, or we will be going over it as a class tomorrow.